begins as a night of refuge turns into a chilling revelation. Have you ever stumbled into a place that feels too perfect to be real? Like a dream, teetering on the edge of nightmare. This is the story of Joe Rodriguez, a thief running from justice who sought shelter in a stranger's house deep in the woods. But what he found inside was not safety, nor mercy, but a terrifying truth that had been waiting centuries to be remembered. Rain lashed against the trees of Hollow Glen like a punishment from the gods. Thunder cracked above, the kind of thunder that sounds like it might tear open the sky. In the storm's fury, a man darted through the underbrush, his breath heavy, his footsteps uneven. Mud clung to his boots and coat. Blood stained the corner of his lip. His name was Joe Rodriguez. Thief, smuggler, runaway. He had pulled off the biggest heist of his life, stealing a diamond worth more than a lifetime of wages from the state of Lord Whitmore. A man as cruel as he was rich, but the job had gone sideways. He had killed a guard, not part of the plan. Now he was hunted. Dogs barked in the distance, and men's voices rose like specters through the trees. He needed shelter. He needed rest. Through the curtain of rain and mist, Joe saw a dim light, a lantern flickering behind a window, a house, small, solitary, and oddly well-maintained for being deep in the woods. Its charm would have struck him under different circumstances. Painted white with ivy climbing, the porch posts and flower blooming despite the late autumn chill. He stumbled towards it, dragging his aching leg. He knocked, then pounded. The door creaked open. A woman stood in the threshold. She was young, maybe in her 20s. Her hair, the color of firelight, cascaded over her shoulders. Her face was pale and delicate, and her eyes, an eerie shade of violet, held a calmness that unsettled Joe more than the storm. "Yes," she said softly. I'm lost. Please, the storm, Joe leaned against the doorframe, his body threatening to collapse. For a moment, she simply watched him. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." Joe didn't ask questions. He limped into the house. The inside smelled of lavender and old books. A fire crackled in the hearth, and the room was filled with antique furniture, porcelain dolls, and faded paintings of landscapes that looked vaguely wrong. Skies too dark, trees twisted, faces in the shadows. Joe," he managed. Freya," she replied. "You're hurt?" He nodded, wincing. "Just a scrape." "Sit," she said, guiding him to a velvet chair. She moved gracefully, silently, as if gliding. "I'll get you something warm," she said. She returned with a cup of tea, its aroma strange but comforting. Joe drank greedily, too tired to take care of what was in it. As warmth spread through his limbs, his eyes fluttered. "You can rest here tonight," Freya said, her voice almost a whisper. "Thank you," he mumbled. Then the darkness claimed him. He woke to silence. The storm had passed. The fire was still burning. Yet he didn't remember it was being tended. He glanced around. The house felt colder now. Freya was nowhere in sight. Rising slowly, Joe limped down the hallway. The walls were lined with portraits, some so old the paint was cracking. One in particular caught his eye. A family of three, a man, a woman, and a little girl. The woman looked like Freya. He turned a corner and froze. At the end of the hall was a room with the door slightly ajar. Candlelight flickered within. He pushed it open. Inside was a bedroom, neat and ornate. A journal lay open on the nightstand. He picked it up. It said, April 12, 1853. Freya is not well. She speaks to people who were not there. The doctor says it's grief, but I fear it's something else. She talks of shadows watching her. Then, May 3rd, 1853. She vanished last night. We found her standing in the woods, barefoot, eyes black as coal. She didn't speak for days. Joe closed the journal, his pulse quickening. Footsteps he heard. He turned sharply, but no one was there. Freya, he called, but no answer. He descended back into his living room. The fire was gone, the windows were now dark. No moonlight seeped in. Then he saw her, standing in the kitchen doorway, her eyes glowing faintly. You shouldn't have gone into that room, she said. Her voice no longer soft, but cold, accusing. I was looking for you, Joe said. She stepped closer, and her form shimmered, flickered, as if reality couldn't quite contain her. I was trying to help you, Freya whispered, but now you've remembered. Remembered what? Joe stepped back. That you've been here before. Joe shook his head. No, I would remember this place. You were the one who led the others here. In 1853, you helped them find the house. My family was hiding from the world, but your greed, her voice cracked like lightning, got them all killed. That's not possible. That's not. She was suddenly inches from his face. I never forget a soul that's been marked. He ran. He bolted through the front door, into the woods, heart hammering. The trees seemed to close in around him. The path twisted back on itself. No matter which direction he ran, the house always reappeared, standing silent and still. Joe collapsed in the mud. I'm sorry, he whispered to the darkness. Thunder rumbled. Though no storm loomed, Freya stood above him, floating her eyes with black voids, mouth stretching unnaturally wide. Her voice was now many voices, layered and echoing. You cannot steal from the death and walk away. You cannot kill and be free. This house is a wound, Joe, and you are its infection. The night had passed, or so it seemed, but time felt distorted inside the house. Joe sat in the velvet chair, long after the ghostly figure of Freya disappeared into the shadows. The memory of her words, clinging to his skin like sweat. It was madness. He had no memory of any house in Hollow Glen, no recollection of a woman like Freya, yet her words echoed with such certainty that they yawned at the edges of his mind. He rose with effort, searching the house more thoroughly now. His legs ached. The tea had dulled the pain, but something about it made him sluggish, foggy. He moved carefully. The kitchen was ancient, wooden counters worn smooth, a black iron stove that looked unused in years, though still warm. There were herbs hanging from the ceiling: lavender, wolfsbane, belladonna, poisonous, a strange choice for a woman who seemed so gentle. The walls were filled with drawings and letters, childish drawings, he realized, pinned neatly along one section, depictions of a red-haired girl holding hands with figures he assumed were her parents. On the mantel above the hearth stood an old photograph. Freya, unmistakable, even in black and white, stood beside a taller man, possibly her father. Behind them was the house, identical to how it looked now, except surrounded by other cottages and signs of life. But Hollow Glen had been abandoned for decades. No one lived here anymore. He found a staircase leading to the attic, narrow and cracking. Something told him the answers were up there. The feeling wasn't curiosity, it was dread, pulling him upward like a puppet string. The attic door groaned as he pushed it open. Cobwebs brushed his face. A single dusty lantern illuminated the space. Boxes, old trunks, and something that looked like a covered mirror stood at the back. The air was colder here, like a tomb. He approached the mirror and pulled the cloth away. The glass didn't reflect him. Instead, it showed another time. A gathering, torches, men in dark coats shouting, Freya screaming. The image shifted rapidly. Her parents being dragged from the house. The family accused of witchcraft, of hiding a curse. Then he saw himself, clean-shaven, younger, guiding the men into the house. "No," he whispered. A sudden wind surged through the attic, and the vision vanished. "You were their Judas," a voice hissed in his mind. Memories he didn't know he had began to surface. A past life, another existence. A time long before automobiles, long before this era. He had been a scout, a thief even then, working for the coin. He led a witch hunter's crew to the doorstep of a reclusive family, Freya's family. They were never proven to be witches, but superstition was stronger than fact. Her parents were hanged. Freya was spared, but disappeared soon after, lost to grief or taken by something darker. "You opened the door then," the voice continued, "and now you're back to close it." He stumbled back down the attic stairs, heart thundering. Freya stood at the bottom of the steps. Only now she looked nothing like before. Her skin was molted and gray, parts of her face sunken, as if something had tried to claw its way out from inside. Her dress floated as if underwater, and her hair drifted around like tendrils of smoke. "You remember now," she said. Joe nodded slowly. "I was one of them." "You were the worst of them. You smiled when my father was beaten. You joked as my mother screamed. You told them that you were just doing a job." "I was," his voice cracked. She floated closer. "Do you think that makes it right?" "No, it doesn't. I died here, Joe. Not then, but later. Alone, I waited years for someone to find me. No one came. So when I became something else, this house, it feeds on guilt, on memory, and you brought plenty." He didn't beg. He couldn't. Her pain was too real, her rage too justified. Instead, he asked, What now? She raised a hand, and shadows poured from the walls. You pay the debt. Darkness swallowed him. When he woke up, it was daytime again, yet the sun felt cold, as though filtered through frost. The house looked normal, even cheerful. The fire burned softly, and Freya was nowhere to be seen. He rose, but something was wrong. His body moved stiffly, like a puppet. He looked into a mirror into the hallway. The face that stared back was his, but waxy, pale, and lifeless. He tried to scream. No sound emerged. Footsteps behind him. Freya stood at the doorway, now serene, dressed in a clean blue dress, as if the horrors of the night had been wiped away. "You're part of the house now," she said gently. "It won't hurt anymore. Not really. You'll sit here for years, decades, maybe longer. You'll watch others come, and you'll remember." He tried to move, to speak, to resist, but his legs carried him on their own, back to the velvet chair. He sat. The fire warmed his face. He blinked once, then again. Time passed. Outside, the woods shifted with the seasons. Years later, another wanderer would found the house, its windows still glowing with warm light, flowers still blooming despite the frost. He would knock, the door would creak open, and Freya would be waiting. In a hidden drawer beneath the nightstand, sealed in a cracked envelope, was a letter in trembling hand. "To whomever finds this, the house is cursed. Freya is real, but she's not the girl you read about in the papers. She's something older now, something that remembers. If you find this note, don't stay. Burn the house. Bury the ashes in the salt. Do not drink the tea. And whatever you do, never, ever look into the mirror upstairs. It shows you things that should remain buried."